So there is another very, very important concept in congruent triangles that we've touched upon a few times, but we haven't emphasized as being extremely important. And that is the theorem that we sometimes call CPCTC. Or in other words, corresponding parts of congruent triangles are congruent. Okay, and it's perfectly fine if you want to use the abbreviation CPCTC for that statement. Okay, so what this statement means is that once we prove that two triangles are congruent, all the corresponding sides and all the corresponding angles are congruent. So let's look at a specific example of this. Let's say we have two triangles. Triangle number 1, which has vertices A, B, and C, and triangle number 2, which has vertices D, E, and F. And let's say that what we know is that side AB is congruent to side EF. Okay, so we're given that AB is congruent to EF. We're also given angle A is congruent to angle F. And finally, we're given that side AC is congruent to side DF. Okay, these are the three facts that we're given. And what we can conclude from this is that we have side, angle, side in triangle number 1, and we have side, angle, side in triangle number 2, which is telling us that we can conclude now that triangle number 1 is congruent to triangle number 2 because of side, angle, side. So that's sort of what we know already, but what this theorem here, corresponding parts of congruent triangles are congruent, tells us very specifically is that we know a lot more in terms of congruent parts of these triangles. We know now, for example, that side BC, which corresponds to side ED, because they're the only two sides that were left over, those corresponding sides are also congruent. So we also know that side BC is congruent to side ED. We also know that angle B, which we'll represent by 2 bars here, which lies between the side with 1 mark and 3 marks, and corresponds with angle E because it also lies between the sides with 1 mark and 3 marks. We know those two angles must be congruent as well. So we also can say that we know angle B is congruent to angle E, and of course the angle left over, angle C, is congruent to angle D. So we know a lot. Once we know two triangles are congruent, we know that all the corresponding angles and all the corresponding sides are congruent. So we can use that conclusion wherever we need to when it becomes necessary to either state it as a result or use that result somehow in a proof. So that, again, is this theorem: corresponding parts of congruent triangles are congruent.